LiberalViewer presents.
So, the February 4th edition of LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup, the 200 aspersions on the FBI and the Justice Department in terms of getting a FISA surveillance warrant against Carter Page, who worked for the Trump campaign. Oh, also, if you want to see the 16 clips, I'm the list of my 16 clips that I refer to during the show. I put a link to that down in the video description. This is the second week in a row. You can also support my videos by making a direct PayPal donation to at paypal.me/liberalviewer. But like I said, the big topic is the memo that was released on Friday, and I'm going to have
of your busy schedule.
Yes, I'm so busy, and if you're wondering why I'm so out of breath, it's because my P90X morning exercises right now. But I'm saving the economy, destroying ISIS, and right now I'm getting bias time.
You are.
I can't hear you.
So that's the obsequiousness that I thought was well portrayed in the parody. I mean, not the best impressions for people who are familiar with Steve Doocy and the brown-haired guy who's not Steve Doocy, Brian Kilmeade, and certainly not a good Ainsley Earhart. A weekend update clip with...
And when you look at that, and you see that, and so many other things...
Listen to him stammer. He sounds like Colin when I asked him if his family ever owned slaves.
Can we have this conversation off camera?
I don't know, sometimes I think the best part about the weekend update jokes is like the Colin, Jost, Michael Che banter there in between the jokes. But, I mean, some of those jokes there were...
They uncovered it in their print this week.
Had to keep going through the Fat Nixon joke. And like I said, there were several facts interspersed throughout that series of jokes that were more fact-intensive than the jokes on Weekend Update. And although there was one mistake in there, I noticed he said that he was going through all the...
He attacked his attorney general's claim it shows that the FBI wrongly convinced a judge to approve a wiretap against a former campaign advisor, Carter Page, by relying on a dossier paid for by the Clinton campaign and by failing to disclose that funding. Democrats, whose own rebuttal memo has...
to ABC, to more of a news summary, you saw Pierre Thomas, their justice correspondent there, gave
Counsel Don McGahn wrote in his cover...
You figure that one out.
President Trump is not ruling out firing Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. Campaigned by Trump allies to push for the memo's release.
The end didn't really have a news summary, but that's because their bias machine was broken. I don't know. But well, I'll explain that when I get to it. But next, CNN's State of the Union also had a similar title as ABC, the war on the FBI, or, well, it's actually Trump versus his own national security officials, though the State of the Union is ready for football. I guess Jake Tapper couldn't stop himself from making a Super Bowl reference right at the beginning there. And then I have one criticism at the end, this anonymous official they used to criticize Trump, which I will discuss with you after we watch this 80-second clip together over here.
Jake Tapper in Washington, where the state of our union is ready for some football as Americans wait for the Eagles and the Patriots to face off in the Super Bowl. President Trump is facing off with his own national security community leaders. The president spent Saturday golfing and complaining on Twitter that nobody's talking about his great jobs numbers, only Russia, Russia, Russia. He also used Twitter to declare himself cleared in the ongoing Russia investigation after the release of a Republican 4-page memo alleging the FBI abused its surveillance tools during and after the 2016 election. He tweeted, quote, "This memo totally vindicates Trump in probe, but the Russian witch hunt goes on and on. There was no collusion and there was no obstruction." The word now used because after 1 year of looking endlessly and finding nothing, collusion is dead. "This is an American disgrace," unquote. In response to the president's tweet, a former senior national security official told me, quote, "As a public servant, I was taught to never take official action for personal gain. That is exactly what our president has done. He personally ordered the declassification of the memo, not for political purposes, but for personal purposes. The proof of that is his claim that he has now been vindicated by the memo. In my view, this conflict of interest is the real story, not the memo itself, which doesn't contain much we didn't already know," unquote. Let's get right to the number 2 Democrat in the...
And I'll have a couple clips from Dick Durbin coming up. It looks like all of a sudden Xfinity Comcast has turned on the internet again, and I've started broadcasting to the live streamers. I'm sorry that the first half hour, first 20 minutes of the show did not get live stream, but I will upload the recorded show at the end. This has been a nightmare waiting for there's been some sort of something has been wrong with my internet for the last 7 or 8 hours, so that I finally got to start the show, and now it looks like I'm actually broadcasting the show, but I'm already on clip number 7 here, which is the 4th of 5 news summaries about the release of the memo. This is the CBS Face the Nation news summary about the release of the memo on Friday, with I don't know who's going to be, now that John Dickerson's gone. There was Nancy Cordes last week. This week is Margaret Brennan, and she did a fairly good job. And I don't know if the guest hosts have any input into the structure of the show, but they actually did a news summary, which, as I pointed out over many weeks, CBS's Face the Nation doesn't do a news summary. It's only about a minute long, but I will play it for you and talk about it with you after we watch together over here.
The news cycle in Washington has been dominated this week by a 4-page memo written by Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee, asserting that the FBI concealed that it had used anti-Trump research funded by Democrats when it obtained a secret warrant from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance, or FISA court, to monitor a Trump campaign associate named Carter Page. He had already been on the FBI's radar due to past contact with Russian operatives. The anti-Trump research, also called the Steele dossier, was originally put together by a former British spy named Christopher Steele. The Republican memo also confirmed that the FBI investigation had begun in the summer of 2016 based on information about another Trump campaign associate named George Papadopoulos. He has since pled guilty and is cooperating with the probe led by special counsel Robert Mueller. Saturday, President Trump tweeted that the memo, quote, totally vindicated Trump in the Russia probe. We sat down earlier with South Carolina Congressman Trey.
That's South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy, and I'll have a couple clips from him coming up, as well as Adam Schiff, because they're two of the only members of Congress. There are a couple others that Trey Gowdy will talk about, but there are very few members of Congress who've actually read the FISA warrant request documents that went to the FISA stands for Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, and then there's the FISC, which is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, that they make applications to spy on people like Carter Page, who they think are foreign agents. There's probable cause that they are foreign agents, and apparently they prove that to a court 4 times, and the question is whether they improperly used the so-called Steele dossier, as you saw in all those news clips. Now, Trey Gowdy, I'll show clips of Trey Gowdy coming up, because Trey Gowdy and Adam Schiff actually read the, maybe it's 60 pages, and there's just this 4-page memo now, but there's usually many pages in a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court warrant application, and Trey Gowdy read it all, Adam Schiff read it all, and I'll have 2 extended clips from both of them coming up. But before I get to the Adam Schiff and Trey Gowdy clips, I want to show one more news summary. It's a really brief news summary from Fox News Sunday, and then they let this Republican member of Congress sort of frame the issues. They don't really talk about, you'll see, I guess Fox News Sunday had some technical difficulties this morning, so they didn't show their little introductory montage with the voiceover, and they just started with Chris Wallace staring into the camera and saying, we didn't pay our electricity bill. Not really, but we've got a problem. And actually, I can't really, after all the problems I had getting my broadcast going, I can't really cast any aspersions on Fox News Sunday for that. But I was thinking, does that mean their bias machine is broken? Because that introductory montage is usually like one of the most biased parts of the show. But you'll see that Chris Wallace does not give very much information at all about how, what's going on and the flaws in the memo and the big fight between Trump and his own FBI. And then to frame the issues, he lets this Republican congressman, he does say one or two things about the Mueller probe that are good, but other than that, he does get to frame the issues for Fox News Sunday viewers in this 3-minute clip over here.
And hello again from Fox News in Washington. Well, someone forgot to pay the electricity bill. Not really, but we lost power to our studio overnight, and with duct tape and baling wire and a couple of hamsters running really hard, we have jerry-rigged an operation to put on this program. Keep your fingers crossed. The nation's capital is still arguing this weekend about that House Republican memo accusing the feds of abusing their authority to surveil a former Trump campaign advisor and suggesting there's politics at the center of the Russia investigation. We begin this hour with two members of the House Intelligence Committee. From San Francisco, Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell, and from Salt Lake City, Republican Chris Stewart. Gentlemen, now that we've seen the memo, the big question is, where does this leave the Robert Mueller special counsel investigation? Here's a tweet that the president put out this weekend. The memo totally vindicates Trump in probe, but the Russian witch hunt goes on and on. There was no collusion and there was no obstruction, the word now used because after 1 year of looking endlessly and finding nothing, collusion is dead. This is an American disgrace. Congressman Stewart, does the GOP memo vindicate the president? Does it end the need for the special prosecutor's investigation?
No, it doesn't end that need at all. I think it would be a mistake for anyone to suggest that the special counsel shouldn't complete his work. I support his work. I want him to finish it. I hope he finishes it as quickly as possible. This memo has, frankly, nothing at all to do with the special counsel. It was one of the criticisms of people last week and before that who had never seen the memo, who said, this is to impugn the integrity and the work of the special counsel. As you know now, Chris, has nothing at all to do with that. They're very separate. I hope the special counsel will complete his work and report to the American people.
So what do you think the president is up to when he puts out a tweet saying that this memo vindicates him and obviates the need for any investigation?
Yeah, I think a couple things. And, if I could take 30 seconds to review something that you said. For more than a year, we had collusion, conspiracy, people were accused of treason, and no one is making that accusation anymore, at least no one serious. Even Dianne Feinstein has said there's no evidence of collusion, and I think that's the point the president is making. The essence of this memo is something quite different. And again, Chris, it's as you said, Hillary Clinton and the DNC hired Fusion GPS, who then hired, ironically, a foreign agent to create this dossier that we know is just political garbage. It's no more credible than a $2 novel. And the FBI used that dossier to survey a private U.S. citizen who had no accusations against him except for he had associations with the Trump campaign. It's an absolute abuse of power, and we just want the American people to know that.
All right, we're going to get into the memo in a minute. I want to talk and turn to Congressman Swalwell about...
So that was, you notice how Chris Wallace started that clip saying, hello again. Well, that was the very beginning of the show, so I don't know why he's saying hello again, but it was because of their technical difficulties. Like I said, I can't fault them for having technical difficulties, given that the first half hour of this show, did not get broadcast in anywhere, really. If you're watching this as a recorded show, hopefully you'll be able to see it without too many glitches. I don't know. Sometimes when the stream isn't working, the recording doesn't get some glitches in it too. We'll see after we're done. But so I can't fault the glitches on Fox News Sunday. But they then did not really give the Democratic position very strongly, or, as any of the other news summaries I showed, they gave the Republican position, but then they also gave the Democratic response. You saw there that the first few minutes of Fox News Sunday, there was basically no summary of the Democratic position. They did have Eric Swalwell on, and I'm not going to show any clips of him, but he did a good job, but was kind of out, especially if you include all the Fox News panel discussion. There was much less Democratic response on Fox News Sunday than there was the Republican talking points, although you did see there that Chris Stewart, that member of Congress, did say that this memo doesn't in any way impugn the Mueller investigation, which seems to be what everybody was saying other than Donald Trump, as you saw in that tweet. And that same tweet where Donald Trump says he's vindicated was the basis of the first question for Adam Schiff, the Democratic ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, who has read, like I said earlier, has read all the underlying...
It didn't begin with Carter Page. It actually began with George Papadopoulos, who was a foreign policy advisor for candidate Trump, and someone who was meeting secretly with the Russians and talking about the stolen Clinton emails. As a court, is there a political motivation? Was there a political actor involved? And the court was notified a political actor was involved, and that's part of the misleading nature of the FISA application. In terms of the identity of the political actor, the most important information for the court is, what did Christopher Steele know? And Glenn Simpson has testified that Christopher Steele was not told the identity of the lawyer or the party behind the lawyer. That's the most important information evaluating Christopher Steele's bias.
But you're saying the court was told that the dossier was funded by a political actor?
Yes, that there was a political actor behind it. And this is, again, part of the misleading character of this document. And George, I want to, comment on this claim by my Republican colleagues that this is oversight. They're just doing this as a matter of oversight and asking these questions about why wasn't this included. If this was oversight, the committee members would want to read the underlying documents, to allow them to read the documents. They voted it down. I made a motion to bring against hearing from the FBI. When you do oversight, you haul them in under oath. You say
the candidate or the party, but said that there was partisan funding for
used a vehicle that has never been used before in the history of the House to release this very one-sided memorandum in terms that we would have the opportunity to do. But the goal here really isn't to find out the answers from the FBI. The goal here is to undermine the FBI, discredit the FBI, discredit the Mueller investigation, do the president's bidding. From the midnight run that Chairman made to the White House to present documents he'd actually gotten at the House to today, it's all part of the same. And indeed, the chairman, question about whether his staff was working with the White House on this memorandum.
Probably has merit, and there's this investigation. And I will show you that first 1 minute Trey
Gowdy, a key House intelligence investigator, and asked him if he thought the president had been vindicated.
I actually don't think it has any impact on the Russia probe for this reason.
Might actually be flipping in a clip of Trey Gowdy.
That's the Steele dossier that you are pointing to there.
But it's both the Steele dossier and who paid for
together this mess. You are not saying that it was the sole piece of evidence used to justify these 4 officers?
No, it would not have been.
How can you say that? Because it was authorized
to be able to do the jobs that they have been assigned. We have confidence in Bob Mueller, and we have serious concerns about this process. So we have all 3 of those things in common, including being concerned about what happened in 2016. Should all the information in the FISA applications be publicly disclosed, declassified, so that people can make their own judgment and see what you've seen? I think is usually confidential.
You still would have believed this FISA surveillance warrant was justified? I mean, your problem is in the disclosure within the application, but the surveillance itself of this American Carter Page was named in your memo, who was at one point a Trump campaign associate. Was that justified, that surveillance?
We'll never know because the application contained 3 parts. included the dossier. It included reference to a newspaper article, which, by the way, no court in America considers a newspaper article to be evidence. And it included other information they had on Carter Page. So what I would say to the FBI and DOJ is if you had enough on Carter Page with just him, why did you include something that the National Enquirer might not run? And why did you cite a newspaper article? There's no court in America that allows a newspaper article to be considered as evidence. If you have
or article into evidence in court, so that's kind of bogus. His campaign lackey or whatever, Carter Page, Democratic memo to come out to know what that footnote says. But I saw one pundit say on one of the shows in a clip I didn't take that, there was that in this footnote that to the foreign intelligence surveillance shows, and so now I want to go to I have
absolve this president from any
this memo that was released from the House Intelligence Majority does not vindicate Donald Trump as his tweet claims. It's okay, watch that clip together over here.
I want to ask you, it's about those actions.
Listen, this would be an extreme event, and one that, say with some caution, could create a constitutional crisis in this country. The question at that moment is whether or not the majority Republican, I think that's too hypothetical, but we understand what the Constitution says we must do.
Really picking up on the whole Rod Rosenstein part of it, which I think is the firing of Robert Mueller, and that maybe, that there's, he can't.
Interview that you saw no evidence of collusion and no after you answered this question, but you're focusing on what happened in the FISA court.
And by the way, those things that you've talked about and the work of the special counsel, which
all he did after seeing the evidence was say, virtually no. Here's Reince Priebus, who there's a Freudian slip in here. See if you can, because I think one of the pundits on NBC's Meet the Press said later, where he's trying to show he never had the intent to commit a crime, even though
February said media. I understand. Let me one more question about one more event. One more event. Never a time that Michael Flynn
is he is in criminal jeopardy and has with the Russians. He first said that he never denied it. Sandy to lie down, and she did lie down for the. And you can see I even had to edit out like 10 seconds of that clip where Sandy was frustration for me. Hopefully next week I'll do the show at a more reasonable